John Travolta has broken his silence on Scientology. It's just over a week after that HBO documentary.
Los Angeles. In a private screening room tucked away in Beverly Hills, black leather chairs face a blank screen. Heavy velvet curtains block out the world outside. The projector casts ghostly images on the walls, memories of scenes and movies from decades past. John Travolta sits alone in the center row, his arms crossed, his eyes cold and distant. The famous charm is still there, but it's hardened now, like something beautiful that's turned to stone. "I played nice," he says to the empty room. "For 50 years, I shook hands with people who stuck knives in my back. I smiled for the cameras like I couldn't feel the blood running down my spine." He laughs, but there's no warmth in the sound. "They tell you to be gracious, be professional, don't make enemies. You know what that gets you? It gets you used up and thrown away." His voice grows harder. "I spent decades letting people walk all over my name like it was a doormat in their mansion. But not anymore. I'm done being quiet." He leans forward, his eyes blazing. "There are 7 actors I need to talk about. 7 people who made this business dirtier just by showing up. I'm not here to whisper secrets. I'm here to say their names out loud." The first name comes without hesitation. Tom Cruise, the golden boy, the savior, the perfect machine, the biggest lie Hollywood ever sold. Travolta doesn't flinch when he says it. Tom Cruise is the fakest thing I've ever seen on a movie screen. He's not just an actor or a star. He's like a computer program designed to look human, a hologram projected onto every theater in the world. Travolta shifts in his chair. He's not a man. He's a press release with teeth and perfect hair. He pauses, then clarifies. "I'm not talking about his acting ability. Even I'll admit Cruise can sell a scene. He can run, punch, smile, and cry on command. But that's all it is. Commands and response. You think you're watching real emotion on screen? You're watching mathematics. Everything about him is calculated down to the last detail." The memories come flooding back. I remember when Tom was just starting out. He was young, raw, hungry for success. There was still a real person in there then, still a heartbeat behind all that ambition. He used to laugh back then, not that perfect camera-ready chuckle he does now, but a real laugh. Human and messy and genuine. Travolta shakes his head sadly. But somewhere between Top Gun and Mission Impossible, something changed. He didn't just polish himself up for Hollywood. He erased himself completely. The real Tom Cruise got buried under layers of PR handlers, spiritual armor, and a focus so sharp it could burn holes through steel. He stopped being a person and started being a product. And the worst part? The world loved him for it. The bitterness creeps into his voice. I watched from the sidelines as he vacuumed up every good role in Hollywood like a black hole. Action star, dramatic lead, science fiction messiah. Studios would fight wars just for the privilege of giving him the same 3 facial expressions in increasingly expensive settings. He leans forward. "I was in Pulp Fiction. People said I was back on top, that I'd made the greatest comeback in Hollywood history, but I still couldn't get past his shadow. His name filled every room before I even walked through the door." Then there's the subject that makes Travolta's jaw clench. And then there was Scientology. That was the worst betrayal of all. He took the same faith I bled for, the same beliefs that nearly destroyed my career, and turned it into a launching pad, a talking point, a shield to hide behind. Travolta's voice drops to almost a whisper. He used the church like it was his personal publicity team. While I was getting beaten up in the tabloids, becoming a punchline on late-night TV, Tom climbed higher and higher, untouchable, invincible, wrapped in this glow of manufactured devotion. The anger builds again. He didn't build anything. He absorbed everything around him like a sponge. Co-stars, scripts, interviews. Even God wasn't safe from his PR machine. Travolta remembers one particularly painful moment. I tried to connect with him once at a private dinner. Pulled him aside, told him I was proud of him, asked how he was really doing underneath it all. The memory stings. He smiled at me with that glass-cutting grin, his eyes as empty as a department store mannequin, and said, "I've never been better, John. Never. Every day is a gift." Then he walked away like I was just another reporter asking questions. Travolta's voice cracked slightly. He looked at me like I was a camera, like he didn't know how to be off the record anymore. What eats at me most isn't jealousy, Travolta continues. It's the lie. The fact that the world keeps buying it. Every grin, every death-defying stunt, every desperate declaration of passion gets treated like gospel truth. He's the face of Hollywood. He spits the words. And that face is molded plastic. Travolta counts off Tom's failures on his fingers. The Mummy tanked? No problem. Tom didn't fail. The genre did. His co-stars flopped. They just weren't compatible with his brand. His bizarre outbursts, his rants, his couch-jumping break, down somehow get reframed as charm and passion and authenticity. His voice rises. If I had done half of what he's done, they would have buried me under a mountain of jokes and called it a career obituary. He takes a breath, composing himself. To the world, Tom Cruise is tireless, dedicated, a perfectionist who risks his life for every role. To me, he's a soulless machine with a marketing department where his conscience should be. A billionaire ghost puppeteering his own legend. A corporate mascot wearing the skin of a man who died sometime in the 1980s. And the worst part of all, people think he's real. The second name comes with a different kind of frustration. Nicolas Cage, a chaos engine stuffed into human form. That's the only way I can describe him. Travolta's voice grows rough. Nicolas Cage is what happens when an ego takes acid and never comes back down. And somehow, we gave him awards for it. They shared the screen in Face Off, but according to Travolta, they shared nothing else. We weren't co-stars. We were two separate universes stitched together by wardrobe and prayer. Every day on set was like playing Russian roulette. You never knew which Nicolas Cage would show up, the manic genius or the catatonic man-child. Sometimes you got both in the same take. Travolta rubs his temples, remembering the chaos. He doesn't act like he's possessed by a character. He acts like he's possessed by pure chaos itself. He doesn't play a role. He collides with it, screams at it, tries to eat it alive. There was no rehearsal, no building a scene together, no chemistry between actors. He didn't collaborate. He invaded. The memories pour out like water from a broken dam. Cage would show up with his eyes wide and twitchy, muttering about obscure German philosophers and what kind of sandwich his character would eat during the apocalypse. Then he'd scream a monal, Ogwe at the ceiling, and call it his process. Travolta shakes his head. I'm over here trying to hold the whole thing together with duct tape and caffeine while he's chewing up scenery like it owes him child support. What made it worse was the reaction. He'd blow through a scene like a hurricane and leave nothing but rubble and confused camera operators, but everyone treated it like a gift from heaven, like a miracle. Travolta's voice turns bitter. He made terrible choices look brave. He made garbage look like high art. The man could scream the alphabet while wearing a clown suit, and critics would call it a daring exploration of American grief. Travolta remembers one day that still haunts him. Cage was supposed to walk into a room and quietly deliver 2 lines. Simple stuff. Instead, he kicked open the door, dropped to his knees, and let out a blood-curdling scream that probably shattered windows 3 blocks away. He pauses. I froze. Everyone else started applauding. The director said, God, he's fearless. I said he was insane, but apparently insane sells tickets. The mythology around Cage became unbearable to watch. The method, the madness, the no two takes alike mystique. He turned being unpredictable into a brand name, Travolta says, and somehow I got buried underneath all of it. When the movie premiered, all the buzz was about Cage's performance, his twitching, his weird little voices, his overcooked vowels. People forgot I was even in the damn movie. Travolta's voice grows quiet with exhaustion. They called him a force of nature. They called me stable support. You know what stable support means in Hollywood? It means boring. It means forgettable. He watched as Cage descended into direct-to-video hell years later, turning out stacks of incoherent performances in movies nobody watched. But the myth never died. He bombed for a decade straight and they still called it eccentric genius. I bomb once and they write my career obituary. There's no real bitterness in his voice now, just the weariness of someone who's watched bad behavior get dressed up as artistic brilliance for too long. He screamed, he flailed around, he practically set his hair on fire, and everyone clapped like he was reinventing cinema itself. And his fans? Rabid, cultish, completely delusional. Travolta imitates their voices mockingly. They'd say things like, "You don't understand him, John. He's operating on another level entirely." He laughs without humor. Yeah, the level where the rent is due and dignity is optional. He tried once to have a real conversation with Cage, to understand what drove the madness. I asked him what was behind it all. He looked at me dead serious and said, "I'm chasing the raw truth of human instinct." Then he walked away to scream at his reflection in a prop mirror. Travolta sighs. That was the most honest moment I ever got out of him. Everything else was performance. Always performance, even during lunch breaks. The third name brings a different kind of pain. Bruce Willis. Once the king of cool, a smirk in a white tank top, swagger that made explosions feel like punctuation marks. But he stopped caring years before anyone noticed. And when they finally did notice, it was too late. The damage was already done. They worked together on Pulp Fiction, the movie that should have been a renaissance for both of them. I came in with everything to prove. Bruce came in like acting was a chore he'd forgotten he'd signed up for. No passion, no presence, just a body hitting its marks on cue. His face was blank, his voice barely there. He glared into the camera like it owed him money. Travolta tried to work with him, to build momentum and shape their scenes together. He looked at me like I was asking him to shovel gravel in the hot sun. No feedback, no collaboration, just that signature half grin and a lazy, "It's just a movie, Johnny. Relax." The memory still stings. I didn't relax. I almost walked off the set. You spend your whole life trying to get back to the top, and then you look over and realize your scene partner has already mentally checked out and gone home. Yet somehow Bruce maintained his reputation. People called him a pro, a veteran, a legend. He wasn't a legend. He was a guy doing the absolute minimum amount of work while everyone else carried the weight. And he still walked away with top billing and the biggest paycheck. The real betrayal wasn't just the bad takes or the obvious disinterest. It was the coasting, the long, slow glide into absolutely nothing. He had the entire industry at his feet, Travolta says, and he sleepwalked through it like he was bored by his own success. Every new movie, same scowl, same flatline delivery, same lazy paycheck performance. And we all just pretended it was fine because he used to be great once upon a time. Travolta is careful to note that he doesn't blame Bruce for the illness that was eventually revealed. Not now, not after the world learned what he'd been hiding all those years. But that doesn't erase the decades before. The choices, the attitude, the walls he built around himself like success was some kind of prison cell. People tried to help, according to Travolta. I tried. Directors tried. Hell, even the grip operators tried to bring him into scenes, to elevate the work. But he shut everyone out. Any attempt to connect was met with stone. Cold, blank, dismissive stone. One moment still cuts deep. We were blocking a scene together. Nothing flashy, just a small human moment. I suggested we play the beat a little quieter, with a pause, a breath. Bruce didn't even look up from his coffee cup. He just said, "Just say the lines, Johnny. It ain't Shakespeare." The words echo in Travolta's memory. That sentence still haunts me. Not because it was wrong, but because it was everything Bruce had become. Detached, cynical, finished. What made it worse was that audiences didn't seem to care. He trained people to expect less from him, and they applauded him for it. Other actors were bleeding for their craft. Bruce would walk through explosions in slow motion, dead behind the eyes, and they called it cool. Travolta's voice drops. He made talent look optional, and Hollywood went right along with it. There were years when Bruce could have reinvented himself, could have found new gears, but instead he dug in deeper. He signed deals for trashy straight-to-DVD action movies with titles like Hard Kill and Deadlock. He'd barely say 10 lines per film and still get paid millions. He turned effort into a punchline, and the rest of us had to live with the consequences. The fourth name comes with a different flavor of resentment. Richard Gere, a smirk in an expensive suit. That's all I remember. Not a voice, not a presence, just that smirk. Polished, controlled, quietly cruel. He made smugness look romantic, like condescension was a cologne he dabbed on his wrists every morning. Gere was different from the others. He didn't yell, didn't push, didn't backstab. He didn't need to. He looked through you like you were a waiter at his second favorite restaurant. There was no war between us, no tabloid scandal, just a long, slow suffocation by comparison. In the 1990s, Travolta was clawing his way back from career death while Gere seemed to float effortlessly. He was carried on this mysterious cloud of critical grace, this golden boy aura that said, "I belong here, you're just visiting my world." The bitterness is still fresh. He didn't earn his second act. He just strolled into it like he was picking up dry cleaning. They competed for the same roles back then. Studio executives would whisper about how I was too flashy, too much, while Richard was elegant, refined. I heard it again and again. He was the critic's darling. I was the punchline, the comeback story everyone was waiting to collapse. And Gere never let him forget it. He didn't mock me in public. He didn't need to. He'd show up at premieres and smile at me like I was a math problem he didn't have time to solve. One night still sits like a bone stuck in Travolta's throat. A benefit dinner in LA, all glitz and fake laughter and more Botox than actual blood. Richard sat next to me, all teeth and subtle derision. He leaned over and said, "I hear you're doing another action movie. That's brave." Travolta's comeback was swift. I smiled back and said, "You're doing another sleepy love story. That's expected." The people around them laughed politely, but Travolta never forgot the tone in Gere's voice. Like he was offering condolences instead of making conversation. He talked to you like your career was a lost pet that had wandered off. What made Travolta's blood boil wasn't the competition. It was the entitlement. He didn't fight for roles. They were handed to him like wine lists at fancy restaurants, and he had the nerve to act bored by the selection. Gere sleepwalked through half his movies. Blank stares, breathy pauses, eyebrows slightly furrowed in something that passed for depth. And the critics ate it up with a spoon. He could whisper random words into a rotary phone and they'd call it nuanced acting. Travolta grinds his teeth remembering the reviews. Gere brings quiet intensity. Gere channels elegant restraint. That wasn't restraint. That was a man doing less than nothing and getting praise to the heavens for it. If I had underplayed a scene like that, I'd have been told to wake up or get out. But the real wound went deeper than professional jealousy. Richard became shorthand for class, for elegance, for sophisticated adult drama wrapped in silk and mahogany. I was still the disco kid, the comeback clown, the guy with the dimpled chin and the finger guns. He was Hollywood's idea of what sophistication looked like, and I was what they laughed at while buying tickets to my movies. There were always rumors, quiet and unconfirmed, about Gere refusing to be CA, just alongside certain actors. I never asked, never pressed, but I noticed the pattern. If he thought you didn't match his carefully crafted image, you just disappeared from consideration. Richard curated everything, the co-stars, the lighting, even the reviews somehow, and he made it all look effortless. Travolta doesn't deny the man could act. I just hated how little he seemed to try. The great roles, the beautiful leading ladies, the sterling reputation, it all just stuck to him like expensive cologne. Richard glided through his career. I had to claw my way through mine. And somehow the world made us out to be equals, but only one of us was ever allowed to sweat. The fifth name brings a different kind of frustration. Sean Penn, the angry messiah. That's what people called him behind closed doors, with a mixture of fear and grudging admiration. But I'm stripping away all that reverence right now. He screamed his way into becoming a legend, and somehow no one noticed he didn't actually have anything meaningful to say. Sean Penn didn't just enter movie sets. He stormed them like a conquering army. Every single day was a sermon. Every moment was a confrontation waiting to happen. And yet they kept handing him the pulpit, kept giving him platforms to preach from. He acted like having strong moral opinions gave him a license to be completely unbearable to work with. Like caring about the world meant you got to treat everyone around you like dirt on your shoe. Travolta doesn't deny the talent. He could act, absolutely no question about it. But so can plenty of people who don't make their co-stars feel like they're being interrogated by God's drunk older brother. With Sean, everything became warfare. War with the script, war with the director, war with the very concept of collaboration. Every set he walked onto turned into a battlefield. Every director became his personal punching bag. Every crew member was a potential landmine he could explode over if they breathed wrong. Travolta witnessed Sean's process firsthand. I watched him literally tear pages out of a shooting script because he didn't like what the dialogue implied about his character's motivations. He called it his artistic process. I called it a grown man having a tantrum. The production would shut down for hours while Sean rewrote scenes in a corner. He wasn't improving the work. He was marking his territory like a wild animal. One incident still makes Travolta's blood boil. I saw him tear into a camera operator, a quiet, professional guy who'd been working 12-hour days without complaint, because the man's breathing was apparently distracting. The absurdity still amazes him. The guy was standing 20 feet away, just doing his job, just existing. And Sean unleashed on him like a rabid dog. Not in private, not behind a closed door, but right there in front of the entire crew. He barked at this poor kid and called it focus, called it dedication to his art. I call it what it was, bullying, plain and simple. What made Travolta furious wasn't just the behavior, it was how everyone treated it like a divine gift. The press fawned over him, critics practically swooned. Brooding intensity, raw presence, fearless commitment to truth. They ate it up like candy. He could have urinated in a wine glass, and they would have called it a metaphor for American grief. Sean's public persona became equally insufferable. He'd show up to award shows snarling, with cigarettes dangling from his lips, muttering about politics and social justice, and people would cheer like he'd just cured cancer with his attitude. Travolta remembers one particular awards show. He mumbled through some rambling speech about Haiti and got a standing ovation. You'd think he had personally ended world poverty just by frowning at the microphone. The shadow Sean chased throughout his career was obvious to everyone. He thought he was the next Marlon Brando. He adopted the weight, the whisper, the physical presence, but he missed the crucial part, the humanity that slipped in between all the cracks. Brando had genuine pain behind his performances. Sean just had rage and a god complex. He played emotional agony like it was a monologue he'd memorized, but there was no grace in it, just grit and endless screaming. Travolta almost worked with Sean once. Our names were on the same shortlist for months. Sean showed up to the first creative meeting late, high on something he never bothered to name, and immediately demanded complete rewrites. He hadn't even read the script, just skimmed the basic premise, and decided he had a better version already worked out in his head. The meeting was a disaster. He lectured the producer for 20 straight minutes about emotional architecture, and then left without saying goodbye to anyone. He treated the room like it was his personal therapy session, and the rest of us were just furniture he could rearrange. The ego never turned off, according to Travolta. Every interview became a lecture. Every red carpet became a protest march. Every compliment got deflected with a scowl, as if being liked by people was somehow beneath his artistic dignity. Sean weaponized suffering, turning every human tragedy into a spotlight opportunity. And nobody dared challenge him on any of it, because if you pushed back even slightly, suddenly you were the problem. You just didn't understand his higher calling.